good evening, everyone, and welcome to this extraordinary council meeting. I'm sure you know the housekeeping comments about using your own microphones and how to vote. So to save time, I won't read them. Is that agreed? Okay, so we come to apologies for absence. Katie, are there any?
So we have apologies from Councillor Davidson, Councillor Coburn, Councillor Ward, Councillor Mirrlees, Councillor Clark, Councillor Lawton, Councillor Morrison. Are there any other apologies?
Sorry, can I add apologies for Councillor White? Is he there? Oh, he's gone to get some. Oh, okay, good.
Councillor Austin, did you have any apologies?
Thank you. Just mopping up Councillor Martin, Councillor Staunton, Councillor Raleen, and I don't know if Councillor Sullivan provided apologies. So thanks.
Okay, so
Thank you.
item number 2 is declarations of interest. Are there any? No. And just a quick announcement. I know we only met 1 week ago, but it is this festive time for many people, and it has been a busy week. We were guests at Islamabad last Friday to recognise local good causes, many of which received very generous donations from the Ahmadiyya Muslim community. We enjoyed the Meath Christmas carols, and yesterday with the Mayor of Farnham, with the Lord Lieutenant and High Sheriff and Councillor John Ward, we went to Farnham Castle to recognise their volunteers, without whom the town of Farnham would be a much poorer place. The box is on the table. Should anybody not have been here last week and would like to donate to the Meath Christmas Appeal. And due to the rather harsh words of the President of the USA about the Mayor of London, today I posted him a mayoral Christmas card to express our solidarity and to echo his values of diversity and inclusion. And with that in mind, on Sunday is the start of Hanukkah. So to you all, before we come to Christmas, happy Hanukkah. Agenda item number 5, questions. Are there any? None. And no questions by members? No. Agenda item 7 is LGR. Are there any questions on clarity before we move to the motion? No. Councillor Follows.
Madam Mayor, I'm pleased to propose the motion. I believe I have a seconder.
Very pleased to second, thank you.
And are you going to reserve your right to speak? Yeah, thank you. Councillor Follows.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. I apologise to those of you that had to sit here in the preceding meeting. There is a level of obligation I have to ensure that Council has debated in full knowledge of the facts. That means I will be forced to repeat myself, and so again, I apologise. We have the paper before you this evening is the next step in the journey of local government reorganisation, and we have 2 steps in that governance journey this evening. One we have just taken at the Executive, and another was taken last night by the Joint Standards Committee, and my thanks to the 2 joint chairs of that committee and their members for their work on this. As a point of clarity that was asked prior to the executive meeting and was answered in that session for any members that were not aware of it, the delegations that are proposed and outlined in the paper relate to only matters that are then outlined in the draft standing orders. So next year, the currently draft structural change order will go before Parliament, and that legally creates the formal version of these joint committees and formalises a number of legal and technical elements that create the new East and West Surrey unitaries. MHCLG expect us all to work together in advance of that, and what we're therefore doing is creating informal versions of those joint committees in advance of that, and also just noting that we have to do this in one of the shortest timeframes known in local government history, possibly the shortest. The word informal, though, does cause some confusion because it's only informal in relation to its formal legal status in the draft order when that goes through Parliament. But the versions that we have to discuss here are in fact very formal indeed. There's lots of delegations, there's appointments and other matters that require first executive and full council approval. And I'm sure Councillor MacLeod will comment on the elements undertaken by the Standards Committee last night. For those that weren't in the previous meeting, the Western Committee is made up of 12 members, 6 from the county, 6 from the D&Bs. The county have appointed their 6. Because there's more than one appointment, they're subject to proportionality rules. So there are 3 Conservatives, 2 Liberal Democrats and 1 Independent. I won't read the full list again, but there are 2 other Waverley councillors or councillors in Waverley, I should say, who have been appointed to that by the county process. One is Councillor Liz Townsend and the other is Councillor Catherine Powell. The other members, the 6 from each of the Ds and Bs, are presumed to be the leaders of the 6 authorities in the West. And just for anybody who hasn't been keeping up with all of that fun, that's Guildford, Waverley, Woking, Surrey Heath, Runnymede and Spelthorne. So that covers, I think, everything here. The rest of it, I hope, is very clear in the papers, and I'm sure if there's any questions, I can answer them. I hope you will support my nomination to the Joint Committee. I have been part of the process right from the beginning. I think it would serve both Waverley and West Surrey to continue having continuity of the representatives of the Surrey leaders. And I do hope my colleague leaders of all parties are similarly elected to the Joint Committee, because otherwise it will be quite a difficult committee. We believe that there will be the first meeting of this Joint Committee at some point in early January to kick off the work programme and do some of the fundamentals like elect a chair. And we also believe that it will be accessible to all members of all authorities within that territory, so within the West Surrey territory. Members will be able to ask questions, they will be able to register to speak, they will be able to watch the webcast. It, of course, does reserve the right to go into part 2 as well, and that might be the only time that non-members of the committee are excluded, but otherwise it should be relatively accessible to those who want to stay in touch with this. The process here does all of the delegations, and obviously this comes into effect when all of the 12 authorities that need to make this decision have done so, the last of which will be Tandridge on the 18th of December. Madam Mayor, I commend the motions to Council.
Thank you. Are there any speakers? Councillor Austin. Yes, I've done that. Councillor Austin first.
Good evening. Yes, only to say I will be supporting this motion, and it is our firm hope collectively that all members of that committee will put to one side any political concerns and work constructively with each other for the good of our new Western Surrey unitary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
It's just given the way that the whole business has been handled and the way that the LGR has been steamrolled through, I think I'm probably expressing the views of many of us here today when I say I would rather not be in this place, but we are where we are, and of course I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Gale.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will, of course, be supporting this because actually I don't think we've got a better representative to go forward, somebody who's been in a room all the time. But I do feel a bit sorry for him because he will then be quadruple hatted. And I know he works full time as well, and I just hope he's got time to do this.
Thank you, Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the leader said, the Joint Standards Committee met yesterday evening in Guildford, and they had a very good presentation, very clear presentation from Susan Sale, the Strategic Director. And as a result of that, the committee decided to recommend to both councils that the council should participate in the Western Joint Standards Committee initially on a voluntary basis. The second important item to understand is that the council is now going to delegate to the monitoring officer the authority to make the appropriate amendments to the constitution to include the terms of reference for this joint committee within our constitution. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. No other speakers? Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At the risk of upsetting Alex here, I will echo Councillor Austin's thoughts in that I really hope, and you would expect me to say this, and I've said it on lots of occasions, is that I hope that it will be a collaboration and it will be a conciliatory thing and that people will work together. It's so important setting this standards up and setting the profile up for the new unitary. So I really wish both of our members every success in that and really hope that they can work together constructively across all parties to bring the best efforts to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Yes, thank you. And I know it's been mentioned earlier that I have been elected onto the committee by Surrey County Council as one of the Lib Dem representatives. And I'm very pleased and to take up that task. But I can assure other members here, the job ahead of us is huge. We have so much work to do. There will be no room for anybody not collaborating. You know, there is a massive task, and not to be underestimated either how much work needs to be done. And we are obviously taking our role extremely seriously for the benefit of all of our residents, and that is the most important thing.
Thank you. Councillor Keel, would you like to add any words?
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Councillor Follows, back to you.
Thank you. Just to respond quickly to Councillor Gale, I think the days of me working full time have somewhat sailed in my previous primary work. And from my perspective, I've been elected to serve the residents that have elected me in Godalming Central and Oxford, and of course in my county hat in Godalming South, Milford and Whitley, respectively. And I firmly believe probably the best way that I can serve all the residents of Waverley, and indeed quite a few in West Surrey, is by providing good representation and what I hope are reasonable skills in some of the subject matters that we'll be dealing with to the Western Joint Committee. Just in terms of working together and collaboration, I come from a military family and working with a lot of military people now, and I think trench mentality has certainly set in with the Surrey leaders. This is a group of people who did not spend a huge amount of time with each other. We come from very different political and life experiences and different political parties, certainly. And I will specifically call out the independent leader of Epsom and Ewell, the independent leader of Spelthorne, the independent leader of Runnymede, the Liberal Democrat leaders of Woking and Surrey Heath, and of course, the leader of our partner council, Guildford, Councillor Julia McShane, the Conservative leader of Reigate and Banstead, who has been a rock right the way through this process. He's just been fantastic. And indeed, I will say so, despite falling out on a number of occasions, even Councillor Tim Oliver of Surrey, who we have had some chats that have been required at various stages through this process, but they have ultimately been constructive. One thing I will say out loud, so all the officers hear it too. Officers also need to collaborate, and officers and leaders need to collaborate through this process. It is going to be a fraught time for us all. Everybody's a bit worried about their roles. There's going to be lots of posturing and manoeuvring behind the scenes. Let's not be naive about this. We know how it goes, but we are all unified of all parties behind the solemn duty to make this work now. Whether we thought the process was a good idea, whether we thought 3 was better than 2, the work ahead of us now is large, it is real, it is necessary, and we all have to club together if we have any chance of making this work in the short time that we have. So again, I want to thank all of the people who have managed to get us to the position we are now. I also want to specifically thank Susan Sale, not just for drafting the vast majority of the terms of reference, but for working with her colleague monitoring officers across all of the authorities to get a common set of terms of reference. Can you imagine how difficult it is to get 12 authorities to agree a common set of terms of reference to bring to 12 meetings within a month? That is not an easy task. So thank you, members, for your comments and your contributions this evening. Thanks again to the Standards Committee, and I commend the motion to members.
Thank you. Well, the recommendation has 7 parts, and I propose that we take them en bloc So when the lights show, please vote. Thank you. That is carried unanimously. So we come now to agenda item number 8, shared financial services. Are there any questions on clarity? Councillor Higgins.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I first read paragraph 6.4, I took it that that's what we're currently spending on 93.5 FTEs, but then I moved on to 6.5 and it was essentially saying we're going to recruit 9.9 FTEs, but for the same money. When I went back, I realised it was actually, this is just what's budgeted. I was wondering if that's my understanding is correct, and secondly, whether there's any figures for what we're currently spending on the 93.5 FTEs.
Thank you. Would you like to take that now? Yeah.
Yeah, happy to do that, Madam Mayor. Yeah, so the current numbers, the 56 and the 37.5, we have a budgeted FTE cost envelope, and that envelope either pays for the staff as we've got them, or it is used to cover interim staff. So what you'll see in 6.5 is, in fact, although it looks as though we're adding 9.9 FTEs, what we're doing is actually saving from interim staff. So the actual people that we have, because interim staff tend to be slightly more expensive, or in some cases a lot more expensive than full-time equivalents, the budget envelope will go from interim staffs to funding the 9.9 additional FTEs.
Thank you. Councillor Ken Reid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I was just looking for clarity on the recommendations, because the report that we have in front of us, unless I misunderstand it totally, mixes recommendations of the executive, the joint executive, Guildford Borough Council and Waverley Borough Council. So I would like some clarification as to which recommendations we are going to be considering as Waverley Borough Council tonight. And could I add that I was rather confused, and I only picked this up this afternoon, otherwise I would have talked to an officer earlier, is that in section 2.4, the subsections are labelled 2.22, 223. I think they should be 241 and 242, but that's just a minor point, because we may be needing to refer to those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Merriweather.
Yeah, thank you. This is a multi-purpose report, so it's actually gone to the Joint Executive Committee, it's gone to Guildford Borough Council and Waverley Borough Council. So the recommendations that we are considering are the recommendations that are being directed to us at Waverley Borough Council, which is 2.3 and 2.4. In actual fact, we are the last council considering this, the last entity considering this in that chain. And I know everybody will have spotted this. So not only is there the typo at 2.4, but actually halfway through paragraph 4.2 at the bottom of page 6, you will see there's a date there, 27th of January 2026. That date was there when the old timeline meant that we would not be considering this until the new year. We are clearly considering this tonight, so that 27th of January 26 should be today, 10th of December 2025.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So, Councillor Merriweather, you're going to formally move this.
I am.
You are,
Madam Mayor.
please do.
Yes, yes, and I believe I've got a seconder too.
I'm pleased to second, Madam Mayor.
And do you reserve your right to speak?
I'm sure I do, yes.
Okay, Councillor Merriweather.
Very good. Okay, so so this is the report. It's in the supplementary pack. But this report, as I say, we are the last piece of this jigsaw. This report was passed by unanimous consent by our colleagues in Guildford last night. Standalone locally, the proposed shared finance service between us and Guildford builds on the progress of our collaboration, which since 2021 has created a joint management team and developed shared structures across so many of our key functions while maintaining each council's sovereignty. A shared finance function is the natural next step in strengthening resilience and reducing duplication. The report sets out the options for how that sharing can be structured and recommends that we discharge the finance functions on behalf of ourselves and Guildford from the 1st of April next year, creating one integrated finance team. Guildford staff would transfer under 2P, and the combined service would support both councils. This approach provides clear benefits. It provides stronger resilience and capacity, reducing single points of failure. It provides standardized processes and one finance contact for each service area. And it improves capability and reduces dependence on interim staff, as we've just discussed. It also supports our statutory best value duty, ensuring continuous improvement in economy, effectiveness and efficiency. And in fact, this kind of integration, removing duplication, pooling expertise and operating at scale is exactly the type of improvement that would be expected in the private sector as well and should be applauded in this context. The proposal, as we said, is within the existing budget envelope, combined budget envelope, and no redundancies are anticipated. Staff and unions will be fully consulted, and a project group is already in place to manage the transition. But also, this proposal comes at an important moment for both authorities, and another benefit of this proposal is that it provides better alignment as we move towards local government reorganisation. This is a major reform, and it will require strong, resilient and modernised back office services, especially in finance. Today's proposal helps us prepare for that future in a planned and efficient way. So this recommendation strengthens our financial management, supports our collaboration programme and prepares us for reorganisation and delivers the continuous improvement our residents expect. Which brings me finally just to a few words I'd like to say, if I can, about our departing Section 151, Richard Bates. And I'm sorry he can't be with us tonight because this would have been his last council. But last night we did get to thank him in person at our executive. Richard's deep professional skill and exhaustive, direct, relevant experience has been, frankly, priceless over the period that he's been with us. But even more than that, his soft skills, his patience, his composure, and all-round reassuring nature have made it a genuine pleasure to work with him. And I'm sure you'll all want to join me in thanking him and wishing him absolutely all the very best for the future. On that, I'll commend the recommendation to the council. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Austin.
Yeah, just briefly to say, I find it hard to vote for something which involves sharing services when there are no financial benefits to doing so just before we are effectively no longer going to be a council. I'd rather Officer time was spent on more pressing issues than reorganising existing structures like this. I've said it before with all of the others, and so I'm being consistent. So I'm afraid I will be voting against this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hyman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On Monday evening, we had the first, I think, joint overview and scrutiny committee meeting ever for Waverley and Guildford Borough Councils. And I and Councillor Wicks substituted because of everybody else was at Farnham Town Council important strategy meeting. And we got to enjoy a completely different world where they don't do scrutiny and they allow the executive to run it. And so I understand Councillor Follows said that he thoroughly enjoyed that, which I'm sure he would do. And we were told there, beyond any doubt, when in the discussion of an item on carbon pricing, where building carbon pricing in, which increases the work for the finance team, that the finance teams had sufficient capacity to be able to do such things. There was no problem whatsoever. And 2 days later, we've got to take on an awful lot more staff because they haven't got capacity, and I just don't know who to believe. I tend to agree with what Councillor Austin said, because that was pretty much what I said on Monday evening, and was shouted down, insulted, all sorts of things for even thinking it. You're not allowed to play devil's advocate, and you're not allowed to have any thoughts that are opposite to the administration over there. I'm extremely worried about this council being in bed with them, quite frankly, from what I saw on Monday. And I think that, quite honestly, we should not be doing. We've got very important things to do. I think reorganisation of something which, I think our finance team here have done a good job over the years compared to other councils, certainly. And I just don't see why we should be spending a lot more money. What would our residents say? Reading this, and if they've watched the webcast of Monday evening's meeting and heard what was said, and they read this, and they, what would they think? So I'm sorry, I'm not going to vote in favour of this. I'll listen to the debate and decide whether I'm going to vote against or abstain on it. But I really am not sure that this is a good thing to do, and it's spending money that we supposedly haven't got.
Thank you. Councillor Goodrich.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we did have our first meeting of the joint overview and scrutiny on Monday, and as the joint chair, I don't accept that we were sort of puppets to both the executive. The leaders were there to explain the policies that we were being asked to look at, and we did scrutinise. But the point I was going to get up to speak on was the fact that this matter, unfortunately, this particular item, unfortunately, has not been scrutinised, because before our meeting, the executive had made the decision on the 4th of December, and we met whatever the date was on Monday. And so we haven't had a chance of looking at it. Which I regret, and I'm sorry it's been pushed through so quickly to, not I'm sure, to deliberately avoid the scrutiny process, but in fact that's the reality of what's happened. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Townsend.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I mean, I think Councillor Merriweather covered a lot of the points that have been raised about about LGR and the importance of us being far more resilient going into that. I can't think of any other pressing issue or more pressing issue at the moment than that. We will be bringing together lots of, the list of districts and boroughs and the county and all of their finances. The fact that two have a joint team can only be a positive thing in moving that forward. Also, it's within the budget envelope. So what would residents think? They're thinking, or they're just spending the same amount of money, but adding resilience going forward into LGR. So I think it will be looked on very favourably by residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kenreid.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought this was going to pass quite easily this evening, but I don't understand the comments of some of the councillors who've spoken against it. The report, as I understand it, was prepared by an officer, and I only refer to point 1.2, which says a shared service will provide greater resilience, capacity and capability for both authorities. It will fully support the authority's strategic priorities, offering best value for our residents and furthering the collaboration. This should result in a positive organisational reputation and improved staff morale. All of these things I would have thought we would vote in favour of, but obviously some people have political motives to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. I see no other speakers, so councillor Follows.
Thank you. Can I also just take the opportunity at full council to thank Richard for all of his work. As Mark says, we did do so at the end of executive yesterday, but he has been fundamental to getting us where we are, particularly with this LGR process, where his experience through this process twice has been invaluable, not just to me, but also to, I believe, almost every leader in Surrey through this process. Can I also just offer my congratulations to Joe Knight, who, as of yesterday's meeting in Guildford, will become our joint Section 151 officer, I believe, on January the 1st. So thank you, Joe. I've worked with Joe quite a lot, despite you predominantly being at Guildford previously. Certainly those of us who do budget challenges and things like that, we've been working with Joe for a while, same with audit and risk. I enjoyed the process at Joint ONS actually on Monday, because the exec were asked questions by members, and the absolutely stunning thing that happened next is I was allowed to answer them. And so was the leader of Guildford, and so was the portfolio holder for environment at Guildford. And I actually agree completely with the position of Councillor Goodridge on that. I thought it was extremely constructive, and I genuinely hope that that is practice that Waverley pick up, because I thought it was really good. Shared services make sense, and this one does especially, and non-financial value is a thing. I suppose that's the only way I can really put that, because we seem to have had that debate quite a lot. Certainly we did on Monday, but non-financial value is something that, you know, we should be also looking at, particularly in the situation that we're in with LGR. LGR worries me for a great many reasons. A number of them are very, very clear, but doing all the things that has to be done really, really fast with no new resources, we're redeploying resources that are already deployed to do other things and often are stretched. And if you can imagine, if they're stretched at Waverley and Guildford, you can imagine they might not even exist in some of the other councils that we've got. So I go back to that point at the beginning, in the previous item at executive, and I've said this a few times before as well. Guildford and Waverley are the most resourced, most stable, most competent, best audited, most financially stable, solvent, whatever words you want to pick, block within West Surrey. It is clearly the stable base of what's coming next. And when you see probably in a few weeks' time some of the things coming out of the Joint Committee, you will see that there will be calls, disproportionate calls, on the resources of the districts and boroughs in the county to assist with that process, not because anybody wants to take over the process or because they think they're going to do it best, because they're the only districts and boroughs that actually have the resource at all. So a stable Guildford and Waverley leads to, I think, the only chance for a stable financial West Surrey. We also, of course, have to keep everything running back here while we're doing that. So maintaining resilience is in fact fundamental, not just as a concept, and we would be wanting to do it anyway, but bearing in mind we know that resource is going to be moved to do the unitary work. Resilience is fundamental, it's essential. So same money, better value, more resilience. Really don't see the debate. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Merriweather.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just deal with the comments from Councillor Hyman and Councillor Austin. Councillor Hyman, I think our residents will be more surprised to think that you've read the report and it recommends us spending more money. It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't. In fact, there is an option in there that does recommend we spend, or does suggest that we spend more money, and that's the one that we've actually, one of the ones that we've turned against. Coming back to Councillor Austin, LGR is not a reason to delay making this kind of a decision. We are under financial stress. We need effectiveness and we need efficiency to carry on business as usual and prepare for LGR. The status quo, we know, is not the best way forward, and we are preparing. This paper prepares us for what is coming down the road. And I'm just going to use one example, if I can, a very relevant example to put that into context. The letter from Steve Reed on the 28th of October talks about the £500 million in principle repayment of the Woking Borough Council's debt. And it says quite clearly, this figure of in principle support is subject to further assurance of the council's financial position. Now, how do you get that assurance if you do not have the best team properly configured in an effective and efficient way to actually do the due diligence that is needed to get this thing over the line? We need to put our best foot forward, and sticking our head in the sand is not that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So the recommendation also has three parts, which I propose to take on block. So when lights show, please vote. But just to remind you, left is for, right is against, and in the middle is to abstain. So that is carried with 28 votes for, 5 abstentions and 2 votes against. So that is the end of that meeting.